"You don't belong here, Sophia, you never did." The words cut through the Hamptons mansion like a blade through silk. My mother's voice. Margaret Reynolds. Cold. Precise. Designed to destroy. I stood in the doorway of the grand ballroom, watching 300 people turn to look at me. Crystal chandeliers threw diamonds of light across their faces. Their champagne glasses caught the glow like tiny weapons. This was supposed to be home. The estate where I'd spent summers as a kid, where I'd learned to swim in the infinity pool overlooking the Atlantic, where my father had taught me chess on rainy afternoons before he died. But standing there in my simple black Armani dress bought off my own money, earned from my own company, I felt like an intruder at my own family's celebration. Isabella's 10th anniversary gala. My baby sister, 28 years old and married to money she didn't earn, living a life she didn't build. She stood at the center of the room in a diamond-encrusted Elie Saab gown that caught every light, every eye, every ounce of attention in the space. The dress my mother had promised me for my 30th birthday. The one Margaret had said was being held for a special occasion. Apparently, Isabella's marriage to a hedge fund manager qualified. My 3 cybersecurity patents and a company valued at $42 million did not. Margaret glided toward me through the crowd, 62 years old and surgically perfected. Her Chanel suit probably cost more than most people's mortgages. Her smile was practiced, lethal. "Sophia, darling." She air-kissed both my cheeks. Her perfume was suffocating. "So glad you could make it. Though I am surprised you found time away from your little computer projects." Little computer projects. I ran the fastest-growing AI cybersecurity firm in New York. Protected Fortune 500 companies from ransomware attacks. Had a team of 63 employees. Made 7 figures annually. But to Margaret, I was still the girl who chose MIT over cotillion, who picked code over country clubs, who refused to marry the sons of her wealthy friends, and instead built something that was mine. "Wouldn't miss it, Mother." I kept my voice level, gave her nothing. She took my arm, not gently. Her fingers dug into my skin as she steered me toward the center of the room where Isabella held court like a queen. The crowd parted. Senators, CEOs, old money and new. All here to celebrate my sister's decade of doing absolutely nothing except looking beautiful and spending someone else's money. Margaret's voice rang out, amplified, commanding. "Everyone, I'd like to thank you for being here tonight, to celebrate Isabella and Marcus. 10 beautiful years." Applause. Champagne glasses raised. Isabella has brought such joy to this family, such pride. Margaret's eyes found mine, held them. Unlike some, she understands what family means, what legacy means. The room went quiet. That particular silence that comes before blood is drawn. I felt every eye on me, watching, waiting. Margaret continued, her smile sharpening. "After all, isn't your job just sitting at a computer debugging things, Sophia? While Isabella here actually represents this family in society, she is the pride of the Reynolds name." Laughter erupted. Not all of it. Some people looked uncomfortable. But enough. Enough to make the humiliation complete. Isabella beamed, raised her glass toward me in mock salute. Her diamond bracelet, probably $50,000, caught the light. I stood there, 33 years old, self-made, successful, respected in my industry, and completely erased in this room. But I'd survived worse than public humiliation. I'd survived being the disappointment daughter for 3 decades. This was just another Tuesday in the Reynolds family drama. Then I saw it. The screen behind the main podium, the one displaying the Reynolds family legacy presentation, photos of company milestones, board members, shareholders. My name was gone. I'd been on that shareholder list since I was 18. My father had made sure of it before he died. 20% of Reynolds Holdings. My inheritance, my birthright. Removed. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands, pulled up the corporate filing app I used for my own company, searched Reynolds Holdings. The filing was dated 5 days ago. Emergency board meeting. Restructure of ownership. Sophia Reynolds shares redistributed to Margaret Reynolds and Isabella Reynolds Chen. They'd erased me legally before they erased me publicly. My mother was still talking, still performing for the crowd, but I couldn't hear her anymore, just the sound of my own heartbeat, the rush of blood in my ears. I looked up, met Margaret's eyes across the room. She was watching me, waiting for the breakdown, the tears, the scene. I didn't give it to her. Instead, I smiled, set down my untouched champagne glass, and walked toward the exit. My heels clicked on the marble floor, each step deliberate, controlled. The sound echoed through the ballroom like a countdown. No one stopped me. No one said goodbye. They just watched, whispered, probably already posting about it on social media. Another story about the black sheep Reynolds' daughter who couldn't fit in. I reached my car, a Tesla Model S I'd bought with my first big contract, and sat in the driver's seat. The Hamptons mansion glowed behind me, all those windows lit up like a beacon of everything I'd never be allowed to have. My phone buzzed. A text from my assistant. Board filing went through. Your removal is official. I stared at the message, then at the mansion. At the life they'd built on appearances and old money and cruelty disguised as standards. And I whispered to my own reflection in the rearview mirror. Fine, let's see who really doesn't belong. I started the engine. The electric motor hummed to life, silent, powerful, ready. They thought they'd won. Thought they'd finally cut out the part of the family that didn't fit their perfect picture. They had no idea what was coming. Would you forgive a family that tried to erase you, or would you burn it all down? Stay with me. Because what Sophia discovers next doesn't just expose her family's cruelty, it reveals a web of lies, theft, and fraud that will destroy everything they've built. 3 days after the gala, I sat in my Manhattan penthouse at 2 a.m, surrounded by the glow of 4 monitors. The city sprawled below me, 23 floors up, millions of lights stretching toward the horizon like fallen stars. But I wasn't looking at the view. I was hunting. Shield AI, my company, specialized in finding vulnerabilities in financial systems. We protected banks, hedge funds, Fortune 500 companies from digital predators. I'd built a career on seeing what others missed, on finding the invisible cracks where money disappeared. Tonight, I was using those same skills on my own family. The coffee had gone cold hours ago. My eyes burned. But I couldn't stop. Not now. Not when I could feel the truth hiding just beneath the surface of their perfect facade. I started with my education fund, the one my father had set up before he died, $300,000. Meant to cover MIT, my master's degree, seed money for my first startup. I'd used maybe half of it, been careful, frugal, invested the rest for future growth. Or so I thought. The account statements loaded on my screen. I scrolled back. 5 years, 6, 7. There, a transfer, $50,000, moved to an account I didn't recognize. I traced it. Followed the digital breadcrumbs through 3 shell corporations and 2 offshore accounts. It ended in Isabella's personal checking account. My hands went numb on the keyboard. I kept digging. Found another transfer. 60,000. Same route. Same destination. Then another. 40,000. $150,000. Gone. Stolen. Used for God knows what while I was building my company from nothing. Sleeping on a futon in a shared apartment. Living off ramen and ambition. I pulled up Isabella's credit card statements. Easy to do when you know how to bypass security protocols. When you've spent a decade teaching AI to recognize patterns in financial fraud. Charges from a plastic surgery clinic in Manhattan. $70,000 worth over 3 years. Rhinoplasty. Breast augmentation. Lip fillers. The works. A yacht purchase in Miami. $85,000 down payment. Named Bella Vita. Isabella's good life. Built with my money. The signatory on every transfer authorization. Margaret Reynolds. I laughed. Couldn't help it. A bitter, broken sound in my empty penthouse. So that's what love looks like in this family, I said to no one. Price tagged and tax deductible. But I wasn't done. Not even close. I went deeper. Pulled Margaret's corporate filings. Reynolds Holdings financial statements. The ones that should have shown my 20% ownership. That's when I found the real poison. Loan guarantees, personal liability agreements, all signed electronically with my credentials, my digital signature, my social security number. Margaret had put me on the hook for $12 million in corporate debt. $12 million. If Reynolds Holdings went under, which, based on the financials I was looking at, seemed increasingly likely I would be personally liable. My company, my assets, my future. All of it at risk because my mother had forged my signature on documents I'd never seen. I sat back in my chair, stared at the ceiling, felt something crack inside my chest. All those years, all those lectures about family loyalty, about the Reynolds legacy, about how blood was thicker than water. Family is everything, Margaret used to say. Remember that, Sophia. We protect each other. We stand together. Lies. All of it. They didn't see me as family, they saw me as a resource. A safe with a heartbeat. Someone to exploit and discard when convenient. I stood up. Walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. The city pulsed below me. Alive, relentless, unforgiving. Just like me. I pulled out my phone. Dialed a number I'd been saving for exactly this moment. Catherine Moreau answered on the second ring. The best litigation attorney in New York. Ruthless. Brilliant. Exactly what I needed. Sophia, it's 2:30 in the morning. I know. I need you. A pause. Then, what did you find? I pressed my hand against the cold glass. Watched my reflection ghost over the cityscape. Everything. Fraud, embezzlement, forged signatures. Enough to bury them for decades. Are you sure you want to do this? They're your family. I thought about the gala, about Margaret's contempt, about Isabella's smirk, about my name being erased from everything my father had built, about $150,000 stolen while I worked 18-hour days to prove I was worthy of existing in their world. They stopped being my family the moment they decided I was disposable. Catherine's voice sharpened. Professional. Ready. What do you need? I watched the city breathe. Saw the lights of 1,000 lives being lived. People fighting. Surviving. Building something real. Open every door they tried to lock. Expose every lie they told. Find every dollar they stole. This will destroy them, Sophia. Completely. Are you prepared for that? The wind rattled the windows. 23 floors up, nothing between me and the fall except glass and will. I smiled. Cold, certain. They should have thought about that before they tried to destroy me. I'll file the paperwork in the morning. Fraud charges, embezzlement, identity theft, the works. Good, and Catherine? Yes? Don't hold back. I want the truth, all of it, no matter how ugly. You might not like what we find. I thought about my mother's face at the gala, the practiced cruelty, the casual erasure of everything I'd achieved. I already don't like what I've found, but I need to know, everything. Then we'll get you everything. I hung up. Stood there at the window as the first hints of dawn crept over the horizon. The city was waking up, starting another day, another chance. And somewhere in the Hamptons, my family was sleeping peacefully, dreaming their dreams of superiority and control. They had no idea the storm was coming. But I did, and I was ready. The email arrived at 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday. Unknown sender, subject line blank. Just a message that made my blood run cold and my pulse race at the same time. Check your sister's husband's server. Password, family first. I stared at my laptop screen in my office at Shield AI headquarters. The building was empty. Just me, the hum of servers, and the glow of Manhattan through the windows. This could be a trap. Could be malware. Could be someone trying to frame me or compromise my systems. But something told me it was real. Someone on the inside was giving me a gift. I ran the email through every security protocol I had. Clean, no viruses, no backdoors, just information. And a password that felt like a cruel joke. Family first. I logged into the VPN, masked my IP, built layers of protection around my connection. Then I entered the server address from the email. It opened. Files appeared on my screen, hundreds of them. Spreadsheets, PDFs, email chains, bank records. I started reading, and with each line, each document, each revelation, my world tilted further off its axis. Ponzi schemes, plural, not just one, an entire network of fraudulent investment funds. Offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, Luxembourg, Singapore. Millions of dollars moving through shell corporations with names like Meridian Holdings and Atlantic Trust Group. IRS cover-up documents, falsified tax returns, bribery receipts to accountants who look the other way. And at the center of it all, Margaret Reynolds and Ethan Gray, my mother and my brother-in-law, partners in fraud. But the worst part, the knife that twisted deepest, was what I found buried in the financial reports. They'd been using Shield AI, my company, my reputation, listing us as their cybersecurity consultant, using our legitimate business as cover to legitimize their money laundering operation, making it look like their offshore accounts were protected by a reputable firm. They'd weaponized my success against me. I sat back in my chair, laughed, a sound that echoed in the empty office like breaking glass. They used me to clean their mess, I whispered. How poetic. I printed everything. 347 pages. Each one proof. Each one a wound. Each one a weapon. The next morning, I drove to Isabella's townhouse in the Upper East Side. The one bought with my stolen education fund. The one she decorated with furniture that cost more than most people made in a year. She answered the door in silk pajamas and cashmere slippers. Her face surgically perfected with my money showed surprise, then irritation. Sophia, what are you doing here? I held up the folder. We need to talk about your husband's business dealings and mother's involvement. Her eyes flickered, just for a second, but I caught it. Fear. She let me in. We sat in her pristine living room. White couches, abstract art, everything curated for Instagram perfection. I laid out the documents, watched her face as she realized what I had. You're going to destroy us with this, aren't you? Her voice was flat, resigned. I'm going to expose the truth. What happens after that is on you. Isabella looked at me, really looked at me, and what I saw wasn't remorse, wasn't shame. It was contempt. Don't act like you haven't benefited from this family, Sophia. We're all dirty. You just pretend to be above it. Something cold settled in my chest. I'm not dirty, Isabella. You just don't know what it means to be clean. She laughed. Bitter. Sharp. Clean? You built your company on Dad's money. On this family's connections. You're just as complicit as the rest of us. I built my company on my own talent. My own work. The only thing I took from this family was what Dad left me. What you and Mother then stole. Get out. Isabella stood. Get out of my house before I call the police. I gathered the documents, stood to leave. You should know I'm filing criminal complaints, federal charges. The FBI is already reviewing the evidence. Her face went white. You wouldn't. Watch me. I left. Drove back to Manhattan while my phone exploded with messages. Margaret had gone nuclear on social media. Posts about ungrateful daughters. About jealousy destroying families. About Sophia Reynolds trying to tear down her own mother out of spite. The press picked it up within hours. My face on gossip sites, think pieces about toxic daughters and family betrayal. Television segments questioning my motives. Margaret was good at this. The victim narrative. The wounded mother. The family matriarch under attack from her ambitious, heartless daughter. I read every article. Watched every segment. Let the rage and pain wash over me. Then I got to work. If they wanted to play in the media, I'd show them what real exposure looked like. I assembled my best technical team, 3 of my top cybersecurity experts, the ones who could find digital needles in haystacks of data. I keyed into Margaret Reynolds' private email server, I told them. Everything she's ever sent or received, every secret she's tried to hide. That's illegal without a warrant, my lead engineer said. Consider it a security audit. For my own protection, she's already accused me of corporate sabotage. I need to know what else she's planning. It took them 6 hours. 6 hours to crack Margaret's security. To pull every email, every attachment, every digital footprint she'd left over 20 years. And buried in a folder labeled Personal Private One found it. DNA test results. From 18 years ago. Isabella Reynolds. Biological father. Unknown. No match to Thomas Reynolds. Email chains between Margaret and a man named David Ashford, a former business associate of my father's, talking about their affair, about the pregnancy, about keeping it secret, letters discussing money, payoffs, agreements to stay silent. Isabella wasn't my father's daughter. She was the product of Margaret's affair, a secret my mother had buried for 28 years. And suddenly, so many things made sense. Why my father had left everything to me, in careful, specific terms. Why he'd protected my inheritance, even as he'd provided for Isabella. Why he'd looked at her sometimes with sadness I'd never understood. He'd known. He'd always known. I sat there, staring at the truth, feeling the weight of it settle over me. Their perfect family image, their superior bloodline, their claim to the Reynolds legacy, all of it built on lies. And now those lies were about to crack wide open. The rain came down like judgment. Hard, relentless, turning the Hamptons estate into something biblical. Thunder rolled across the Atlantic. Lightning split the gray sky. Perfect weather for an execution. I sat at the head of the long mahogany table in the conference room overlooking the ocean, the same room where my father had run board meetings, where he'd built an empire, where he'd made decisions that shaped hundreds of lives. Now it was my turn. My black Tom Ford suit was sharp enough to cut, my hair pulled back. No jewelry except my father's watch, the one he'd left me with a note that said, "Time reveals all truths." He'd been right about that. The door opened. Margaret swept in first. Hermes scarf, Burberry coat, that practiced confidence of someone who'd never been told no. Isabella followed. Designer umbrella, Louboutin heels clicking on hardwood, both of them untouched by the storm outside. They saw me at the head of the table and stopped. "What are you doing here?" Margaret's voice was ice. "This is a private shareholders' meeting." "I know. That's why I'm here." She laughed. That dismissive sound I'd heard my entire life. "You're not a shareholder anymore, Sophia. We removed you. Remember?" "Sit down, mother." Something in my voice made her pause, made Isabella's eyes narrow with suspicion. They Saturday reluctantly, like queens forced to share space with peasants. The lawyer entered. Martin Chen, my father's attorney for 30 years, the man who'd helped Dad structure his will, who'd kept secrets that were about to detonate. He placed a document in front of each of them. Heavy paper, legal weight. "What is this?" Margaret demanded. I spoke before Martin could. "It's the truth, the one Dad made sure would come out eventually." I stood, walked to the windows, watched the rain lash against the glass. 3 years ago, when Dad died, everyone assumed he left the bulk of his estate to you, Mother. The business, this mansion, the investments. He did. Margaret's voice was tight, defensive. "No, he didn't." I turned to face them. Let them see the steel in my eyes. "He left it all to me. Every share of Reynolds Holdings, every property, every account, this mansion included." The room went silent. Even the rain seemed to pause. Isabella found her voice first. "That's impossible. We've been running the company for 3 years, living here, managing everything. You've been squatting." I let the word hang in the air. "On property that belonged to me. Using a business you had no legal right to control." Margaret stood. Her face was pale, hands shaking. "You're lying." The will was read. I was there. "You were there for the public reading, the one that outlined your trust fund, your allowance, your comfortable retirement." I smiled. No warmth in it, but there was a private codicil, filed separately, activated only when I chose to claim it. Martin opened his briefcase, pulled out the documents, the ones that would end their world. Thomas Reynolds, in sound mind and body, 3 months before his death, created an irrevocable trust. Martin's voice was professional, detached. All business assets, all properties including the Hamptons estate, all controlling shares of Reynolds Holdings transferred exclusively to Sophia Ann Reynolds. "Why?" Isabella's voice cracked. "Why would he do that?" I looked at my mother, watched her face as the truth closed in. "Because he knew, Mother. About the affair. About David Ashford. About Isabella's real father." Margaret's knees buckled. She grabbed the table for support. "He knew you'd committed fraud, embezzled from the company, used his name and his money to build a lie." I stepped closer. "He knew everything, and he made sure you'd never destroy what he built." Isabella jumped up, chair crashing backward. "You can't do this. This is our home, our family business." "Wrong." My voice cut through her hysteria like a blade. "This was never yours. It was always mine. You just didn't know it yet." "You're destroying this family," Isabella screamed, tears running down her surgically perfect face. "How can you do this to Mom?" I looked at her. This woman who wasn't even my real sister, who'd been used as a weapon against me my entire life. "I didn't destroy this family, Isabella. You two did." I let the words land, let them feel the weight. "I'm just turning on the lights." I nodded to the door. Security entered. Professional, efficient. The team I'd hired specifically for this moment. "You have 30 minutes to collect personal belongings. Everything else stays. The cars, the jewelry, the artwork. All of it belongs to the estate." Margaret found her voice. Shrill, desperate. "You can't throw us out. This is illegal. I'll sue you for everything." "With what money, Mother? Your accounts are frozen pending federal investigation. Your assets are seized. You have nothing." I moved toward the door. The security team parted for me. Margaret lunged. Actually lunged at me. Security caught her, held her back as she thrashed and screamed. "You're a traitor. A monster. Your father would be ashamed." I stopped, turned back to face her one last time. "No, Mom. Dad would be proud. He spent the last months of his life making sure I'd be protected from you." making sure the truth would come out. I smiled. Sad, final. I'm just honoring his wishes. Sophia, please. Margaret was crying now. Real tears. Probably the first genuine emotion I'd seen from her in years. We're family. No, we're not. Not anymore. I walked out into the rain. Cameras flashed. Press had gathered at the gates. Word had spread fast. Behind me, I heard Margaret screaming. Security escorting her and Isabella out of the mansion they'd called home. The rain soaked through my suit, plastered my hair to my face. But I didn't care. I stood there in the storm, watching them being loaded into cars, watching their world end. And I whispered into the wind, I'm free. 6 months later, the Hamptons mansion stood bathed in golden afternoon light. The kind of light that makes everything look like a painting, like something too perfect to be real. But this time, there were no crystal chandeliers glittering inside, no champagne fountains, no society vultures picking at the bones of appearances. Just me, standing on the lawn, holding a set of keys, and Sarah Mitchell, the director of Haven House, a nonprofit that protected women escaping financial abuse, women who'd been trapped by people they trusted, women who'd been used as ATMs with heartbeats. Women like me. Are you sure about this? Sarah asked, looking up at the 14-bedroom estate. This property is worth $30 million. I smiled. I've never been more sure of anything. I handed her the keys, watched her fingers close around them, watched her eyes fill with tears. You're giving these women a future, she whispered. No. I'm giving them what was stolen from me. A chance to rebuild. A safe place to start over. I looked at the mansion one last time, and I'm making sure this house finally does some good. Sarah hugged me, hard, the kind of embrace that comes from understanding pain you can't explain to people who haven't lived it. When she pulled away, I got in my car. A simple Honda Civic, nothing flashy, nothing that screamed look at me, and I drove away from the Hamptons for the last time. The media had been relentless for months, called me the cyber heiress who fought back, put my face on magazine covers, wrote think pieces about family betrayal and corporate fraud. Margaret and Isabella were in federal court, facing charges of embezzlement, tax evasion, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Ethan too. The whole rotten core of their operation exposed to daylight. The trial was set to last 6 months, maybe longer. I wouldn't be attending. I'd given my testimony, handed over my evidence, done my part to ensure justice was served, but I didn't need to watch them fall. Didn't need the satisfaction of seeing them in orange jumpsuits. I'd already won, the moment I walked away. My new home was a brownstone in Brooklyn. Park Slope. 3 bedrooms. A small garden out back. Nothing like the Hamptons estate. But it was mine. Really mine. Built with money I'd earned. Filled with people who actually loved me. Alex was in the kitchen when I got home. My partner. My co-founder at Shield AI. The man who'd believed in my vision when it was just code on a screen and hope in my heart. He looked up from chopping vegetables. Smiled that crooked smile that had first caught my attention 5 years ago in a cybersecurity conference. How'd it go? The keys are handed over. Haven House takes possession next week. He set down the knife, pulled me into his arms. I'm proud of you. I let myself sink into him. Let myself feel the safety of being known, being seen, being loved for exactly who I was. Your cousin called, Alex said. Jake's coming for dinner, bringing that new girlfriend he won't shut up about. I laughed, real laughter, the kind that comes from joy instead of bitterness. Jake, my cousin, the only family member who'd stood by me through everything, who'd testified on my behalf, who'd believed me when the whole world was calling me vindictive and cold. Blood didn't make family. Loyalty did, love did, showing up did. The next morning I stood on our balcony, coffee in hand, watching Brooklyn wake up beneath a sky painted in shades of pink and gold. Alex joined me, handed me a croissant from our favorite bakery down the street. We stood there in comfortable silence, the kind you can only have with someone who knows all your scars and loves you anyway. Do you regret it? He asked finally, voice quiet, careful. I thought about the question, really thought about it. Thought about Margaret's face when she realized she'd lost, about Isabella's tears, about the empire that had crumbled. Thought about the 33 years I'd spent trying to earn love that was never going to be freely given. Then I thought about this moment, this balcony, this man, this life I'd built from ashes. I smiled, looked out at the sun rising over New York. No, I said, I didn't lose a family, Alex. I just found peace. He kissed my temple, held me close. That's all I wanted to hear. We stood there as the city came alive below us. Millions of people starting their days, fighting their battles, building their dreams. I was one of them now. Not special, not broken, not the disappointing daughter or the black sheep or the traitor. Just Sophia, woman, CEO, survivor, free. The light caught my face, reflected in my eyes, and for the first time in my life, when I looked at my reflection in the glass, I saw someone I recognized. Someone I actually liked. Someone who'd walked through fire and come out stronger. The music of the city rose around me. Car horns, distant sirens, the rhythm of life continuing, always continuing. I took a sip of coffee, felt the warmth spread through me, and I let go. Let go of the anger, the pain, the need for them to understand what they'd done. Let go of everything except this moment, this breath, this beautiful, ordinary morning. I was free. And that was enough. If you've ever been told you don't belong, if you've ever been erased by the people who should have protected you, remember this. Your worth isn't determined by those who can't see it. Sometimes the greatest act of power isn't revenge, it's walking away and building something beautiful from the wreckage. Thank you for being here. And if Sophia's story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Freedom isn't just possible, it's waiting for you on the other side of courage.